What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Steve's Project Car Garage. My name is Steve. Back at it again here with the Spitfire, and I'm going to go ahead and try to get a couple of things done with this guy. Hopefully make sure we have the timing done correctly with this degree wheel, and then get the head put on. So grab yourself a cup of ginger juice and stick around. Alright, so in the last video you saw me go ahead and get the timing chain put on. All that went pretty smoothly. I aligned it all up using the timing marks on itself. One of my buddies, Aaron with Dragon Phoenix Garage, recommended that, I still use a timing wheel to just kind of check things and make sure that everything's good. So I went ahead and I printed up this degree wheel from a website called blocklayer.com. And blocklayer.com is a pretty cool site because it allows you to actually go ahead and input the information from your cam. So that way it'll go ahead and clearly mark it out. So I'll show you guys that. I'll show you kind of how my timing setup is done and how I went ahead and just checked to verify that everything is good. And we'll go from there. So before we get started here with showing you that, I wanted to show you this website. Again, it's blocklayer.com. And it gives you all kinds of cool information that you can go ahead and input here. So we made the outer diameter of the wheel 180 millimeters. I measured the hole for the actual crank itself, and it's 19 millimeters. So if you want to use that information on your spit, go for it. It should work for the small journal cams. And then your valve timing. So I got this information from Ted with TSI. So the intake opens up at 30 degrees below top dead center. And then the intake closes at 70 degrees after bottom dead center. And then you can see here with the exhaust information, the exhaust opens 70 degrees below bottom dead center, and then exhaust closes at 30 degrees after top dead center. So, and it also tells you with the calculations of how much degrees of overlap there's going to be, the intake duration, all this stuff. So it all checks out, and then it goes ahead and spits out this fancy timing wheel, degree wheel. And so you go ahead and print that guy out. So it's perfect for what we're trying to do. So I recommend this site. It is definitely really cool. It doesn't cost anything. And it does give you some cool tools to be able to make a nice degree wheel that's going to be specific to your application. All right, so I'm going to show you what I did here and what I got set up. If you want a really good comprehensive video, though, on timing your Triumph engine, make sure you go check out Elon with Rusty Beauties. He's got a couple of great videos on this, and he does it a little bit different. But this is kind of what I found that could work for me, or should work for me. So what I did is I got myself a piece of wire, and I set that up as my pointer. And right now I've got it pretty much right at top dead center. Give or take, it's super close. And then I took my magnetic dial gauge, and I set it up here so that way it's going to tell me once I have hit top dead center. And so what I can do is I'm gonna go ahead and just give the engine a little bit of a turn here, and I'll show you, because right now it's pretty much right at the very peak, so it should go up a little bit and then drop right back down. And then right now we're gonna go ahead and go all the way up, which, whoop, we just passed it. I'm gonna do it one more time though, because we want to get to the beginning of the stroke. It's, as you can see, very easy to miss it. All right, so here we go. Now we can see that the piston is starting to come on up, and just give it slight. Oh, see, we missed it again. So you really don't want to miss it. So we're gonna, one more time, see if we can get it here. I'm doing it. Let me adjust this. Doing it kind of like, normally I do it two-handed because you have a little more control. But okay, so now we got contact with the piston. It is coming up. And we just passed it. So right there, that should be right about top dead center. Yeah. Okay, so I need to adjust the wire a little bit, and that's going to show me 0 degrees top dead center. And I got the wire with like a little pointer, so it pretty much points straight at the wheel. It's just fun trying to get the wire to cooperate. There we go. So that gives us top dead center. We know that's good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it so that way it's sitting on this little part that I made. I took an old lifter and a valve and I went ahead and I welded them together. And this way I have a little surface to kind of work on, so I can kind of have like something to measure by. So I'm going to go ahead and clamp this guy down, and then we're going to go ahead and put this right in the middle of the valve. And I guess we can try to go ahead and zero this out. There we go. Okay, that's pretty much right at 0. So this is going to be on our exhaust valve. So you can see here on the wheel that the wheel talks about, like right now, this could actually be with it open, but I believe it's closed on this rotation. I believe both exhaust and intake should be closed here at this moment because everything's on top dead center, if I'm not mistaken. But what we should be able to go ahead and do now is crank this. And we're going to look for where the exhaust opens. So the exhaust opens here. Okay. And now we should see the dial gauge. If we're on the correct stroke, this should now start to open. And there it is. And now we should start to see it close, because you can see here on the dial, this is where it's going to close. So this is exhaust close at 30 degrees. Was that after top dead center? So let's just kind of take a look at the dial gauge again, and we should see it start to close. This is where we're going to have valve overlap. So if we were to go ahead and take a look at this now and have something on the intake valve, we should see that the intake valve and the exhaust valve overlap by 60 degrees. But keeping an eye on that dial gauge, you'll see we are closed right there. So we know that the exhaust is good. Let's go ahead and just move it on over to the intake. We'll check the intake. And yeah, I think we're in good shape, but let's just double check. All right, so I got things moved around, and now I got the dial indicator sitting on the intake valve. And so we are at the, I guess, just about ready to enter the intake stroke. We got top dead center here. Intake opens at 30 degrees before top dead center. And it's not zeroed, but it's pretty close, but you should be able to just tell. So let's go ahead and give it a spin, and let's just watch. You can see intake valve opens. And intake valve closes right there. And yeah, I think we're pretty good. So what I'm going to do next is work on placing the head on, and then well, actually before that we got to put in the new tappets, and then the head with push rods, and yeah, just kind of see how things are and go from there. All right, so I have the valve tappets or cam followers, I guess, depending upon who you ask here. Brand new, ready to roll. So I got my assembly lube, the Permatex Ultra Slick. So what I'm going to do is just, you know, lube each one of these up and then just gently put them into place. And yeah, so that's what we're going to do. So let's just get going. All right, the tappets and cam followers, or whatever you want to call them, they are in. So yeah, pretty simple, straightforward. Let me go ahead and take a look at the manual and see what's next. My guess is that it's probably going to be putting the head on and then doing the push rods. But let me take a look, just kind of see what they recommend. All right, so yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to put the studs in, and then we're going to put the head gasket on, and we'll put the head on, and then we'll do the pusher rods and then the rocker assembly. Now I'm using ARP studs. This was recommended by a lot of folks to go ahead and use. Looking at the directions say that you only need to lubricate these portions if it's going to be sharing a water jacket. In this case, it is not. So we're just going to go ahead and get these in. And it just says to do them hand tight. So we have 10 in total. We've got a long thread up here, which is going to be for the top. It also has an Allen key in there so that way you can go ahead and tighten them down. And then you got the short side of the thread, which is going to go into the block. So I'm just going to pretty much get started with doing this and bring you back once we have this done. All right, so this is a new old stock head gasket, made in England. This thing is probably about as old as I am. I did give it a good thorough inspection before I went ahead and decided to use this, but I got this from a kit of a whole top-end gasket kit from Kyle, and it looks good. So, I mean, I got no reason to really not think it should work. So it says made in England up here on the top, and so looking at it, that's what I'm kind of using to differentiate the bottom. If you take a look down here, you'll see that there's a little extra material. I'm guessing that's probably metal from the rings themselves here that will be facing downward towards the combustion side of things. So with the studs on and everything, I'm going to just lower this guy on. Plunk. Perfect. That's a nice fit. Excellent. Okay, so now should be able to lower the head on. So that's going to be what I do next. So let me get that guy over here and let's put it on. Like a glove. Look at that. Fantastic. All right. So that went on quite easy. I wasn't sure how it would go. I watched one of Elon's videos before doing this, and he had to kind of give it a couple of nudges to get it to go down. But with the ARP studs, I'm assuming those things are dead straight, and that's why it wouldn't give me any kind of flack. So, all right. So then that means the next thing is going to be push rods, and then we'll lower the rocker assembly. All right, so before I go ahead and actually drop in the push rods into the rocker assembly, I'm going to actually fasten down the head. I'm not going to fully torque it. I am going to get it on nice, and then I'll probably come back and torque it down after I'm sure everything's great, so that way I don't risk, you know, consuming the gasket. So I'm going to go ahead and get the ARP lubricant put on to each one of these. And I want to go ahead and get them down hand tight, maybe 15 foot-pounds or something. And I'm also going to keep this guy on here for the hook to raise it. With the original, they used to have the longer studs here. And the ARP kit comes with nice thick washers that are just a little thinner than the bracket itself, so I'm just not going to put washers on here, but I'll put washers on all of these. So let me go ahead and get that lubricated, and then we'll get these put on and go from there. All right, so now that I have the lubricant on there, I'm just going to get these washers placed on down. And again, I'm going to omit the washers from here because we got the eyelet I suspect if I were to put washers on there, I would not have enough thread to get decent bite. Well, I might. I don't know. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, it's not going to really give me a lot of bite, I don't think. So I'm going to omit those, I think. That's probably a good idea. Not sure if any of you caught that, but I just dropped this guy down into one of the tappets. So this nut is volunteered to be tribute as the first one to go on. Thankfully, I had a telescoping magnet and I could just fish it right on out. All right, I know I said I wasn't going to go ahead and tighten this down initially, but it doesn't make sense for me to not do that because the rockers have to go in, right? And so if I get the rockers and I don't have them in, then that's definitely going to make it hard for me to tighten these up. So I'm going to go ahead and just get started with tightening these down, and yeah, we'll see where we end up, see how it goes. We're going to do it in 15-pound increments. Essentially, the patterns are going to be 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10. So that's what we're going to do. Let's get cracking. All right, let's do this. So I'm actually going to just go ahead and start by just getting them down a little bit.
A few minutes later.
All right, so now let's go for 15 pounds. Okay.
Two very boring minutes later.
All right. Now we're going to bump it up to 30 with the ultimate end goal being 45. Again, same sequence.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
All right, and now one last tightening down to 45. Perfect. All right, heads on. 45 foot-pounds. All right, so now the next thing is going to be the push rods. So beforehand, I went ahead and I put some assembly lube down into the tappets. And so we're just going to go ahead and place the push rods down on in. And then we're going to put the valve train on top. Excellent. Now, obviously, as we set the valve train down, we want to make sure that we get all of the valves properly seated within their cups. I'll show you from the side. So we got the valve train kind of in. It needs to come down a little bit more, but you'll see that there's that little gap there. So we need to close up that gap. But a lot of that, I think, is just because we have valves now that are open and that are going to be closed based upon how we go ahead and have the cam. So we read up on how to make sure we do this right. And yeah, let's keep going. All right, so what I had to do is just go ahead and slacken off all of the adjustment screws. And so now that should just give me the ability to gently ease these all down and in. And yeah, that should be it. Looks like this one might be giving me a little bit of difficulty because that one's going to be up. There's a trick to try to get these. It really shouldn't be though, because all of them are going to be engaged. Interesting. Well, let me go ahead and try to just start putting these on and see if we can just kind of slowly tighten them down. Because really it's just going to have spring pressure, right? So it's going to be opening the valves, and there's no way around that as far as I can tell, because, I mean, that's what this is doing. So let's go ahead and get these on here. And these should go down to 25 foot-pounds. Probably going to do them first at like 10, and then just kind of work them down. Because they want to be done evenly, right? So you don't want to do them all too quickly. And these pedestals, like I said, it's just not sitting. All right, I'm going to go to 10. Yeah, I think that all that we're doing here is just kind of loading up the springs, so. There we go. All right, so that's 25 on the rocker assembly. Now, I guess what I can do is I can try to just roll some of these guys. Right, because there's going to be some slack in them. Not much. Of course, we're going to be adjusting these so that there's about 10 thou clearance. But we'll get to that much later. Nice. Okay, valve train's on. All right, well, this is pretty cool. I actually went ahead and I gave the engine a spin with the driver, and everything seems to run well. There's no binding or anything, so that's awesome. All the valves move, so I think we're in really good shape here. So the next big thing is for me to go ahead and now get this back out to the garage. Thankfully, the weather's calmed down a little bit, but also I've got myself a nice new air conditioner out there that the HOA can't yell at me for. So I'll be working in a little bit cooler conditions. So for the most part, I think that we're actually going to be done with my office. So this will probably be the last time you see me in here, at least on this project. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But yeah, I mean, the next big thing, I guess, for me is to just kind of get the engine into the frame. And then once it's on the frame, I can then go ahead and start buttoning everything on up. I'm going to get the timing cover put on, fuel pump fit, new oil filter fit, get the distributor in. I got to get the distributor gear placed in there still and make sure that's done correctly, but I figure I can do all that out in the garage. And well, I got Grandpa Dick here to go ahead and help me get this thing out into the garage, so I'm going to take advantage of the help while I can, and the rest of it should be able to be done in the car. So if you haven't done so already, please make sure you go ahead and like and subscribe to the videos. Thanks so much for sticking with me on all this, and just remember, when working on project cars like this, take your time and don't be that dreaded previous owner. Cheers.